This is perhaps the most controversial question I have, which is, do you think that a multiracial society is a doomed project? Like, beyond a certain threshold, there's a path determinacy built into it. I mean, you've written about this. You've put a footnote, I think, in Human Diversity, where you reference I can't remember the book now, the one with the red cover, where you talk about the idea
that limits it somehow.
You reference the idea that essentially it seems like slavery doomed America from the start.
Yeah,
and I wonder whether you think
the short answer to the question is, can society survive?
We the People, that's the book.
By the people. Or anyway, America proved that you can integrate other European cultures and mix them up, so that within a few generations, you no longer had these kinds of ethnic communities in New York and the other big cities that you had before, and you really did have an amalgam. When people go to 23andMe in America, they're coming back with German, speaking for myself, German, Scots, Irish, a couple of other European nationalities. But these are all European nationalities. And so we have proved that we can integrate that. We were remarkably successful in integrating the great tragic flaw of slavery, and then African Americans after slavery. But by remarkably successful, I'm not minimizing the racism that went on in the United States after slavery, but you had lots of good things going on too, with music, with the arts and so forth, in integrating. We were making progress there. It was difficult. It continued to be difficult. In the early 2000s, you could have made the argument that we were going to pull it off. I don't want to get too deep into this because it's too complicated. I think America is now tested the limits of what you can do. And sort of the rule is this: a multiracial society, not just multicultural, but multiracial society, which approaches equal proportions of the different groups, is not workable, I don't think. If you have one dominant group, and I don't care which group it is, but one group that's dominant, and then your racial minorities are each 5%, 10% of the population, you can make that work. I don't think we can make it work when Europeans are now down to 60% of the American population. Latinos are about 20, blacks are about 12, East Asians are about 5 and rising. It just looks to me like a lot of the consequences of that kind of integration of different populations may be too much to overcome.
Is this your take as well, Helmut? Like, do you look at a country like Japan, where you have, I don't know, so 98, 99% of them are ethnic Japanese, and they have a fairly conservative, strict society. I mean, societies are complex, knotty things. So if you go onto the human rights record of Japan, you'll find that they also traffic about 200,000 Thai women in a year, right, for sex tourism or whatever you want to call it. So people often look perhaps on the right to Japan and they say, oh, that's the society we want to be. The point I'm making is that it's complex. But do you think that on the racial question, that might be the only way for an advanced technological society to survive and thrive, the Japanese route, and formerly the Scandinavian route?
I'm afraid I know too little about Japan to tell about that, but I have two comments. Your President Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, said once, "This is a country of immigrants." But what he forgot to tell people was that was predominantly European people. And now we come to this question of if you have multicultural societies, and you mentioned Phil Rushton, he had a genetic similarity theory. And basically, it says that the more genetically you are similar to your children and to your surroundings, the better you get along with them. And there are some other studies showing that the more genetically inhomogeneous a population is, the more critical it becomes in terms of social unruh, or what do you call that, social disturbance, criminality, and so on. If that is the case, and if there's some linearity to it, it means that the more genetically differentiated a population is, the more difficulties it will have living together and being productive together. And that means that if you're talking about these different ratios of people living there, you have people from Mexico, you have people from the Hispanics area and so on, and you have people from Africa and so on, the more inhomogeneous Japan or Denmark or United States will be, the more trouble there will be. So that will actually be a sort of a quantitative argument for keeping up the population as genetically homogeneous as you can. But that goes against what EU is doing, what United States is doing, and what people from the extreme left are doing. They will introduce genetically different people living together. And I know this is very controversial.
Outbreeding depression.
Yes. So I think that it is a matter of simple arithmetics of how different people are genetically, how successful they can work together in society. But you might disagree with that.
Well,